Welcome to the CCFR Radio Podcast, your source for news, updates, and stories from the CCFR.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 37 of the CCFR Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Rod Giltaka. Thanks for joining me again. Now, today on the show, it's going to be an action-packed show. I've got a lot to talk about. And you know, it's an interesting thing I was just thinking when I was jotting down some notes to cover today, which was, you know, there's so much that goes on at the CCFR within the 2 to 3 week period between podcasts that I could never, I mean, the podcast would be an hour and a half if I was commenting on everything. So I've been reduced even in the last, I don't know, I'm going to say 10 podcasts. I've been reduced to just picking a couple of items, talking about those and letting the pieces fall where they may. So I just want to, before we move on, I want to let you know, don't forget, join our Facebook group. There's a closed group there. You have to kind of apply to get in, but it's just so that we don't have all kinds of people in there causing trouble and we can just communicate effectively. But there's 25,000 people in there and it's a really active group. There's somewhere around 250 posts a day. So if you post something there, it's a long, you know, it won't be there long. So, but today on the show, I do want to focus on a couple of things. I am going to make comment on the lawsuit with the NFA, probably make comment today and won't mention it again until it's resolved, you know, whatever, 6 months to a year from now or earlier if there's some kind of settlement reached. But I'll comment on it today. And then I don't think it's something we should all be focusing on. We should be focusing on our political enemies and holding on to our guns. Also, I'm going to be having Bob Zimmer on the show to talk about a town hall that he and I are doing along with hunting legend Jim Shockey, and that's at the end of next week. So all that and more right after we come back.
Once you lose rights, it's nearly impossible to get them back. Right now, there are politicians and bureaucrats working day and night to eliminate your ability to own and use firearms in Canada. They're talking about not allowing you to keep your firearms at home and even taking away the ones you already have. It's not a joke. It's not an exaggeration. Activism is a lot of work, and most people don't have the time. But something that you can do is support the CCFR. For $40 a year, you can be a part of the hardest working firearm organization in Canada and get $5 million worth of insurance. The CCFR lobbies government and works to improve the public image of gun owners through media and educational campaigns. Protect your own ability to own and use firearms before it's too late. Go to firearmrights.ca and click Why Join. That's firearmrights.ca.
All right, everybody, we're back. So a couple of things I wanted to touch on. First, we're going to try to return to the original format of the podcast, which is supposed to be a little bit more fun, bringing on guests, get other people's opinion. Recently, it's just been me and Tracy or me by myself. I don't find that particularly entertaining. And the reason for that is it's been red alert, full attack on gun owners recently. And that's left us very little time for me to keep up with trying to make this whole thing entertaining. So I really appreciate everybody hanging in there. And we're returning to that format starting today because I got Bob on. And I've got a couple of other interviews already recorded. So at least for the next few episodes, we'll be back to the original format. Next thing I want to talk about real quick is is an update with the situation with the NFA. And now I'll preface this by saying I don't really want to talk about the NFA versus CCFR thing at length. I'm going to mention it now, and then I think we need to just not talk about it anymore. The CCFR, you guys can talk all you like, right? But we're really not going to talk too much about it because it's just a distraction. We need to fight the Liberal Party of Canada, who has a majority government that's trying to hammer us, and everybody else, and doctors groups, and the Coalition for Gun Control, and you know, we've got a lot of fights on our hands. So we'll just let the courts decide this in the background. And then when it's resolved, then I'll make another comment. So I just don't think it's beneficial to keep going on about it. So when it comes to our statement, Michael Loberg, who is our general counsel at the CCFR, put out a statement in our closed Facebook group. I'm going to read it for you. And I will paraphrase as little as possible. And I'll just leave some stuff out because he editorialized a little bit to kind of give people an understanding of our disposition. So here goes. It says, CCFR versus NFA. For a better understanding of how we got here and the steps we've taken, I'd like to provide a couple of general comments. First, we didn't ask for this. We didn't want this. And we're not happy that this has been visited upon us. And I agree with that. That said, the NFA brought this to us and we need to deal with it. Specifically, the NFA wrote to us on April 2nd, 2019, and after all of their outrageous demands, including that we pay over to them all of our net of expense revenues, they said, please be, and this is a quote, and this is important, this is the key to this whole story, please be advised that failure in whole or in part to comply with any of these demands in a timely manner will result in legal action against the CCFR for intellectual property infringement, this is the important part, without further notice or delay. Okay, so basically, that's pretty clear. So Mike writes, we took them at their word and believed them. This was an express promise to sue the CCFR if we didn't give in to their demands in writing, made by their lawyer on behalf of the NFA. And it doesn't get any more clear than that. We will not be extorted and we will not give them the CCFR money. That's your money, meaning our members' money, not theirs. Therefore, we did the only thing we could do. We did the right thing, as we always do, and immediately put the matter before the federal court for a quick and final determination of who is right, the NFA or us. This is just as Rod explained in his video. We are not interested in waiting to see what, and I'm going to add this, just to see what the NFA is going to do to us. Back to Mike's. As a law and order organization, if there's a claim that we're doing something improperly or illegally, we must get a judicial determination on that immediately. As to the question, did the CCFR file in court first? Yes, of course we did, because of the NFA's demand, claim, and promise to sue us over this logo issue. We did not wait, and we put the matter in the hands of the court immediately to properly, quickly, and finally determine the legal claims they made. We need certainty. Now, I'm not going to finish it. It's just a little more of his position on it. But basically, if you have business experience, you probably already know that you need certainty. You need legal certainty in any matters arising from legal actions or lawsuits or things like that to effectively run your business. So in my experience, I've been in business for a long time. I owned a technology company in Montreal for a number of years. And when we were starting that business, me and my partners actually had an active lawsuit against us from a previous employer that decided that they wanted to undermine what we were doing. And the lawsuit was frivolous. We countersued to punish them for that, for their vexatious, frivolous and vexatious. You guys have heard that a lot recently, but for their actions. And actually, we were in a good position to win. But we ended up settling that lawsuit because at the time we were just gearing up to go out to the venture capital community looking for money to fund our project. And you can't do that if you have an active lawsuit. Nobody will touch you. So that's one consideration, and I'll use as an example of why you need certainty and you can't have active lawsuits against you if you're going to continue in business activities at any level. So whenever something like this happens, you respond to it vigorously and immediately. Now, some people that don't understand that dynamic, of course, they make comments. And I know you guys know to let just comments like that go, but it's funny. It's like, well, who sued who first? Well, they said, we're suing you. And we said, okay, no problem, and sued them. Now, it's interesting. Here's a statement from the NFA. This is on the nfa.ca website. If you go to news or whatever it is, there's a statement from the board of directors. And I'll read you a little bit of what the board of directors has put up there. It says, given the similarities of the CCFR logo in the same field of activities as the NFA, a standard legal letter was sent to the CCFR by the NFA to protect its intellectual property. Apparently, they send these to a lot of people, is what I read into that. The NFA did not endeavor to sue the CCFR. Rather, the CCFR chose to remain silent and then took a path of confrontation when it initiated legal proceedings against the NFA. I don't know if I'm not sure that that's consistent with reality, but I mean, that's their opinion. It was the hope of the NFA that discussions could have taken place and an amicable solution arrived at. So it's interesting how they're portraying it. But again, I don't make assumptions of the astute nature of our audience. I'm sure you guys can figure out what that statement means for yourself. But anyway, it's the whole thing is a real distraction. It's really unfortunate. It's a waste of everyone's effort. We're very lucky that Mike Loberg is incredibly generous to the CCFR with his time and his effort and his personal resources. So it's not going to be very impactful to the CCFR. Unfortunately, I think to the NFA, it's going to be pretty devastating. And anyway, it's none of this needed to happen. We've had our hand out to work with other organizations since day one. I personally called other organizations when the CCFR started and was rebuked by all of them. So whatever, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. We're working ourselves to death over here to make sure that someone is responding to these attacks on gun owners, and that's what we're going to focus on. So anyway, one other thing I'd like to say on the matter before we cut it off until this thing is resolved, whatever, 6 months to a year from now, is I'd like to thank all the NFA members that have reached out with just with messages and words of support and have gotten behind the CCFR and become members and donated and bought swag. The store was almost sold out of almost everything. There was very limited sizes. Don't worry, we've got the store going to be replenished here in another maybe few days. And I just really appreciate all the support. And even places like some certain firearm forums where we don't normally get a lot of support, there's a lot of support there. So I really appreciate it. And I will tell you this, from me to all of you, we will not let you down. Just like I said in the video, we will not let you down. We are fighting tooth and nail. We are scratching, clawing, punching, kicking, and gun owners are not going to be made victims by this government or any doctors groups or any crazies on Twitter or on social media. We're going to fight and continue to fight. And in that, along with that message, the CCFR is expanding. Now, I've been saying this a little bit, but it's the first part of it came to fruition yesterday. I just hired employee number 4. This individual is going to join our team. I will we'll do a news release later and let you know who he is and what he's going to do. But in short, there's going to be a lot of research projects that this individual is going to be doing. And one of them I'm going to tell you about. The other ones are secret for now. So I'm just going to give you an example. We're going to be doing a research project to which I'm just looking at the list to see which one I want to disclose, just to give you guys a taste. We're going to do the doctor study. So the doctors group have been saying the evidence is clear. The proliferation of guns. I've been having a hard time with that word recently. Proliferation of guns is a vector that basically directly responsible and to gun violence, right? And of course, nothing could be further from the truth. The evidence isn't clear whatsoever. There's just as much evidence disproving that. Well, what we're doing is I was looking through their Twitter feed, and they listed, like, here the evidence is clear, and then they listed like 20 studies that they're using as the foundation for that determination. And when I sat in the Senate with Najma Ahmed of the doctors group there, she said that she's got a stack, and she held her hand up, to, I don't know, whatever, chest level for a normal human, said, I have a stack this high of evidence that supports our claims. And so they listed all these studies. Well, I captured all of those tweets, and our new employee is going to go through every single one of those studies, figure out who wrote them, who paid for them, where these studies take place, and produce an abstract on whether or not they are applicable to our situation in Canada. So Dr. Kaylin Langman has done a lot of work towards those in some of those studies, so I'm counting on his support there. But we're going to tabulate and collate all of that data, every single one of them, create abstracts for them, and also detail why they don't apply to Canada or don't apply to the topic in general, so that every single one of you out there can debunk in a perfectly airtight, watertight manner, debunk these studies in front of anybody that shows them. So anyway, if the studies are good and they're applicable, no problem. We'll say that. If they are not applicable, we're gonna make sure that people see the evidence of why they're not applicable. So that whole stack is probably going to be diminished by about 90%, because I kind of know that, but I don't want to claim to know everything. So anyway, that's just one of the projects, and all that stuff will go up on gundebate.ca and be accessible to all gun owners. Compliments of the members of the CCFR. So thank you guys for funding that. That's a big thing, and it just hasn't been really done and publicized before. So I might even make explainer videos about those studies so that we can solidify those messages, down to 1.5 to 2 minutes long in an animated format for those less that demonstrate less ability to think and to read the studies for themselves, which are usually our opponents, right? So anyways, there's a lot going on at the CCFR, and there's further expansion coming, and I can't wait to tell you guys about it. You know, if we weren't the biggest, most influential firearm lobby that Canada's ever seen yet, wait till you see who we're going to be 4 months from now. So it's going to be, the path has been laid out, and we're running down it. So we're going to make you guys proud of us, hopefully. Anyway, next thing I wanted to mention, there's been a lot of, where is it here? There's been a lot of social media censorship, and there's been some alarming bans on social media, including Facebook. And that's a really big concern of us. So if you're listening to anything in this podcast, I will encourage you to listen to this very carefully. Make sure that you go to firearmrights.ca and you scroll down and you join our mailing list, whether or not you are a member. Because if we are big on Facebook. If our Facebook page gets shut down, we're in serious, serious trouble. Okay, we've made a big investment in Facebook, and unfortunately they've been harassing us recently. They just allowed us to show ads because of all the complaints from the anti-gunners. So even ads that are just factual information, we've been experiencing a lot of discrimination on Facebook. I think times are changing, and I think governments are, proper, fair governments are taking the place of these liberal style governments that are all about censorship and discrimination. And I think times are going to change, and these social media companies are going to be held to account. I'm hoping, because you can't shut down the conversation. If people don't have the opportunity for conversation, and that opportunity is taken off the table, then that's a bad thing to eliminate, because that leaves less palatable ways of expressing yourself. And we're fighting against that situation tooth and nail. I feel like we're the only ones that are saying, hey, we need to keep the conversation open. Anyway, crazy people around us. Nonetheless, make sure you're on our mailing list, because if we have a red alert emergency that, we're kicked out of Facebook or something crazy like that, we need to be able to get a hold of you guys. We need to be able to say, here's what's going on. Here's how we're dealing with it, and only rely on that mode of communication, because that might be all we have at some point. Okay. So really, really important that you make sure that you have our, or that we have your email address. Now, if you have any history with the CCFR, you know that we actually don't spam you. In fact, we don't actually even send out enough emails. It's actually a problem that we don't send out enough of them. So don't worry about getting endless emails every day about stuff. You're probably going to get an email every 2 weeks to once a month. You might get 2 or 3 in a month if something's going incredibly wrong. So please make sure that you join our mailing list. That's free, even if you're not a member. Okay? Really important. Now, what I want to do is I want to cut it off now, because I've been talking long enough. And as far as other updates and stuff, I'm going to save it for the next podcast. We will be right back with Bob Zimmer, so stay with us.
In case you didn't know, the CCFR can provide a comprehensive and competitively priced insurance package for your shooting club. The proceeds from insurance sold by the CCFR directly support our operations to protect and expand your rights to own and use firearms in Canada. The CCFR wants to present our insurance package to your club as soon as possible. To get started, email us at insurance@firearmrights.ca. That's insurance@firearmrights.ca.
All right, so on the Skype, I've got Bob Zimmer, Conservative MP for Prince George Peace River. Thanks for joining me again, Bob.
Good to be here, Rod.
Okay, I wanted to talk about, I know you're pressed for time and you're on the road, so hopefully we can keep Skype going, but got a couple of things I wanted to talk about. First, I want to talk about Bill C-71, and we'll talk about our town hall later, but Bill C-71 is it looks like it's going to, the Senate is going to come back with amendments, and then it's got to go back to the House. So I think I'm certainly unclear on what that process is and what it means for us. And I was hoping maybe you could just kind of help clarify that. And where does it go from here?
So what it looks like the process is it comes back to the House. So whatever amendments the Senate proposes to the bill itself, it comes back to the House to be voted on. And the House either accepts those amendments, provides new amendments to those amendments, And basically it either passes or it doesn't. That's kind of where it goes from there. So it comes back to the House for the House to decide. My prediction is that if there's some good amendments in there, I don't see the Liberal government changing the direction that they're going. I hope that they would, but I don't see them changing from that. So we'll see. I'm hopeful always. I'm a glasses half full kind of guy. I'm hoping that they'll see with this discussion about handgun bans and all the rest, they see that lawful firearms owners in Canada are responsible and that we don't need all this red tape. After all the conversations we've had, that's my hope, and we'll see where that goes.
Okay, so let's say it the amendments are all rejected. Then it goes back to the Senate. And then I guess one question, I'm not sure even in our pre-conversation whether we established whether the Senate has the ability to say, no, we don't like it, My understanding of that, so once it goes back, the way it gets sent back to the Senate is, there's further discussion if there isn't agreement between the Senate and the House. And it goes, if again, it isn't agreed upon, like let's say the House says, we don't like your amendments, the Senate can come back and then if they really are firm with those amendments, then a further discussion will have to take place. And that can happen. I haven't seen that happen a lot. Usually it's, now, especially with the Liberals having a majority or independent Liberals having a majority in the place, I don't foresee that being a big struggle. They'll probably agree to whatever is proposed. Even the original C-71, as brought forward by the Trudeau Liberals, I think that the Senate, when push come to shove, the Liberal senators will fall in line with Mr. Trudeau, and that's the way it'll be. Even though those amendments are, I know the work of Don Plett and going across Canada to get some good stuff done there and some changes made. I don't foresee that actually taking place. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the Senate is broken now. Yeah. And the so-called independent senators, I mean, it's so ridiculous. I think McPhedran is one of the independents. Yeah.
Well, there are a few that have actually voted conservative on a bunch of different bills and stuff. So there are, again, my hope, and there are some other senators there that I respect that fly the banner of the Federal Liberal Party, but they don't always vote with the National Party. So my hope is that, with the place is supposed to be a place of sober second thought, that they'll look at the actual bill and what it proposes to do to lawful firearms owners in Canada and add a whole bunch of red tape to us good guys, that it'll see that. Again, that's my hope. And again, we'll see what happens. But they do have the numbers now to just push it through.
So I guess the question on everybody's mind is there time before the next election for Bill C-71 to actually become or achieve royal assent?
Yes, absolutely. So this all could happen real quick, and they tried it actually just a couple of weeks ago, where they had a whole bunch of bills as part of an omnibus setup. I think there was 11 bills all stacked together that they were trying to just push through at the same time. There was a lot of pushback to that, so that's been pulled back off the table by these independent guys. So, they're trying their best to get some of these through. Another one, C-69, and some other bills that they really want to have done. Absolutely, there's time. I think if I was their strategists for their rural MPs, though, Liberal MPs are going to be in some hot water with their constituents, because one of their big promises 2015 was they weren't going to reestablish the long gun registry. And this is exactly, C-71 exactly does that. It gives a copy, the backdoor registry gives a copy to the Quebec government. It's all there. So, I think in their best interest it'd be smart to pull it back off the table or let it just die on the table. But we'll see what happens. That was my understanding. Part of their 11 that they had submitted was C-71, so they still want to get it through.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we'll see. Excuse me. What happens? Next, I wanted to chat real quick about the town hall that you and I are going to be doing together, and along with Jim Shockey, by the way, and that's in Duncan, British Columbia on April the 27th. So it's about a week and a half away. Yeah. Let me get the exact.
Could be exciting. I'm looking forward to it, especially Jim. I've met Jim on a few previous occasions, and anybody that's listening, Jim needs no introduction. He's done a lot of work, just and known worldwide just on hunting and firearms issues, and just a great ambassador for our Parliament Geodor Caucus, and not just firearms, but hunting and conservation and all the rest of it. He's a great example to all of us.
Yeah, and he's quite a big star. And in the past, my understanding is, I mean, I'm not a hunter, right? So I'm not as connected with Jim as a lot of other people are. But it's my understanding that he was not interested in doing anything political until just recently. And he, it's our distinct honor to be sort of chosen by him to be an organization to rub elbows with. So we're really happy about that.
Well, I think he sees it as a threat to the entire sport, not just the whole way of life is a better way to say it, not just the sport of sport shooting or hunting, however you want to view that. But, we're even dealing with issues up in my neck of the woods with closures with regard, and they're saying it's about caribou. And we see some of these groups that are coming in that really, want to close down everything and make it not accessible to fishing, hunting, you name it. And they have ulterior motives at hand. And I think Jim sees that on the horizon. And if we don't fight back now, we may lose it all.
And that's really interesting. I don't want to diverge away from our discussion about town halls, but I've seen that. And there's a couple of other provinces experiencing some similar stuff to basically where the net result is you as a private citizen will not be able to go into the backcountry. It's off limits to you.
Yeah, the term that they use is an organization. Some of these other groups, I won't mention their names, but there's a term called parkification. And some of them want to see entire corridors. And for those, I'm calling right now from Dawson Creek, which isn't too far away from the Rocky Mountains in sort of northeastern BC. But this group that, again, I won't mention, but they see the entire corridor that's got a whole bunch of stuff going on within it. They see that it shouldn't be used by human beings, and that it should be a park, and and that's a nice idea in theory, I suppose. But there's a bunch of human beings that have existed here. I was born in Dawson Creek, and it's part of our heritage, and we want to keep doing that in our province. So this other group isn't from here, but they think closing it down is for the betterment of whatever, and we disagree.
Well, it's funny if anyone's ever watched the original Hunger Games movie, that's oddly enough, that's what it was like there. If you weren't part of the elites, you weren't allowed outside the boundaries of your district, and it's just it's
mirroring life a lot more than we want it to right now.
That's true. So anyway, that most certainly needs to be resisted and rejected. So. I'll be focusing a little bit more on that kind of stuff later on in the fall.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming to a province near you. There's closures that have been talked about in Quebec, Alberta, BC, and it's very much a conversation we're having right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so back to the Firearms Town Hall. It is going to be in Duncan. That's on Vancouver Island. Yep. It's going to be at the Ramada Inn Duncan, which is 140 Trans-Canada Highway, Duncan, British Columbia. It's going to be on Saturday, April the 27th, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So it'll be 2 hours. We're hoping we can get in and out of there in 2 hours. Yeah. But why does anybody want to participate in a town hall? It's basically we're preaching to the converted, but what do you think the value is, Bob?
Well, I think we've heard that a lot, Rod. We've done a few of these together too. I think it's a great question because we've been asked that too. Why are you talking to us right now? You should be out talking, winning those other guys over. But it's more than that, though. What we need is some action from the people that are in the room. We need people to call out to Minister Goodale and to his constituency office and say, hey, this is a really bad idea and this is the reason why. The more people that they hear from by a phone call or by email to their constituency offices, it makes a difference. And we've seen even with other firearms related issues, the ATT, the Arms Trade Treaty, where you'd have to mark your receiver and that with the UN markings. We don't talk about that much anymore because through the pressure of a similar type of movement like this, where we went an awareness campaign, we got them to pull that back off the table. And so similar with C71, I think we can do the same. So it isn't just to talk about firearms. I think from my perspective, I come at it from, okay, I'm the legislative guy from Ottawa. I actually bring the bill and I go through specifically the wording that's in that bill, because I think for some it's a mystery. We've heard it's going to do this or that. I actually read it out and you get to hear it with your own ears what it's actually going to propose. So I think that's valuable to people, really to have a full understanding, but also to motivate them to push back on this thing right now.
Yeah, and to get active, and I think that's a great example. The marking regulation, that's something that put a lot of pressure on the government. They're like, okay, everybody knows it's not practical. Everybody knows it's going to be expensive. Everybody knows it's going to be disruptive now.
Right.
If you go through with it, now it's a real problem, rather than sneak it through and go, oh, we never really thought it through or whatever, right?
Right.
So,
well, and I think, again, there's a lot of, and I know them as friends in Ottawa. They're rural Liberal MPs that ran on not having a backdoor registry reestablished or a registry reestablished, and this is exactly what it does. So, I think for their sake, to push back and to have the bill pulled back by Minister Goodell, I think is something they're wanting to see happen as well. So again, that's the idea behind the town halls. It's to just have that conversation. I know Jim will talk about it from his perspective as well, and get to meet Jim. And it's again a great individual, and Rod too. The work that you've been doing, we talk about it a lot. I think that a lot of the reason why we see the newer generation look at firearms ownership in a positive way is just the videos, the informative videos on social media that you guys do. And it's just a positive message that firearms can be owned and operated safely in Canada. And the more that message gets out far and wide on social media, the better it is for all of us, because that really is the truth. And if this is another way to help that happen, get out there in the public sphere, then great. That's why we're there.
Well, I appreciate the compliment, and hopefully we can continue to live up to that. It's a dirty fight, and it's full of ups and downs, but we're doing what we can. Well,
yeah. Well, the CCFR, I know the CCFR has done a great job. The CSSA too is a group that I'm close to as well, and we definitely look at YouTube groups when we talk about legislation, when we need advice on what this piece of legislation or that should look like. So I want to commend the CCFR, you and Tracy, and again, the CSSA, just for all the good work that you do, and just keep it up. We're all in this together at the end of the day. And I would say even in a nonpartisan way, I think, there's certain aspects. I'm part of a parliamentary outdoor caucus. It's all party. My co-chair is a Liberal. We really try and come at it with the lens is, hey, this is for everybody, not just for a political reason why we're doing this. It's really for our heritage. It's for our kids, it's for our grandkids. And again, I think that's why you guys do it. And that's certainly why we're doing what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And it's not just a fight for us and our stuff. It's a fight for the fact that the next generation can be trusted to have firearms in Canada.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you doing this, Bob. I know you got to run, so I will cut it off here. And like I said, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Rod, and keep up the good work.
What would you think if you heard the government decided that your rifle or shotgun is now too dangerous to own? What if they told you that you couldn't keep it at your house, that you had to pay to store it at some central storage facility? What if they told you that you had to surrender it for destruction or go to jail? These actions are being discussed in government in Canada right now. Think about this. Have you taken any action whatsoever to prevent this from happening? Well, you can. For $40 a year, you can support the hardest working firearm organization in Canada, the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights, and get $5 million worth of insurance. The CCFR lobbies government and works to improve the public image of gun owners through media and educational campaigns. Protect your own ability to own and use firearms before it's too late. Go to firearmrights.ca and click Why Join. That's firearmrights.ca.
All right, everybody, that's going to do it for episode 37 of the CCFR Radio Podcast. Couple of quick reminders. Please make sure that we have your email address. We will not spam you. And as I said before in the first segment, if you have any experience with the CCFR, you know that we don't spam people. In fact, we send so few communications via email newsletters that it's to a fault. So if something happens to our Facebook and Twitter presence, we're in big trouble, right? We can't get a hold of you guys. So make sure that whether you're a member or not, it's free just to get on our mailing list. So do it right now. Go to firearmrights.ca and scroll down and join our mailing list. Super important that you do that. Anyway, the other thing is the store will be replenished soon. There's even a couple of new items in stock right now. Thank you for all your support. Buy some swag if you like. You can donate. You can become a Patreon supporter and get into the CCFR Insiders group. That would be great. And encourage your friends to become members. We will not disappoint you. We've been working ourselves to death, and we're going to continue to do that. In fact, we're looking to double in size within the next 12 months. So big changes happened yesterday. Some big changes coming within 4 months from now. So anyway, we will make sure that we look after your interests and return all the support that you've all given to us. All right. Thanks again for listening, you guys. We will see you next time.
This is another episode of the CCFR Radio Podcast. Remember, if you don't stand up for your own ability to own and use firearms, who will? Join the CCFR or donate right now at www.firearmrights.ca.